Picture this. It is late. The only light comes from the cold glow of your screen, casting long shadows across a messy room you simply do not have the energy to clean. Beside you lies a forgotten list of grand goals, sitting untouched. You are utterly exhausted. Have you ever felt that crushing weight? The sheer burnout of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight, only to abandon everything just a few days later? Now, imagine something entirely different. A single, quiet drop of water, patiently striking a massive stone. It seems so small, so powerless. Yet, over time, that gentle persistence carves its way through solid rock. What if the secret to transforming your reality is not a massive leap, but a microscopic step? Welcome to the silent power of Japanese micro-habits. In a culture that has rebuilt itself time and time again, they do not seek sudden miracles. Instead, they have mastered the profound art of finding absolute greatness in the tiniest of things. We live in a world that loves to label us. When you fail to stick to that massive workout routine, or when you abandon a strict new schedule, society is quick to call you lazy. They tell you that you simply lack discipline. But what if I told you that your failure has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of willpower? It is not a character flaw. The real battle is not against your own laziness. It is happening deep inside your brain. Specifically, it happens in a tiny almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your brain's ancient alarm system. Its only job is to keep you safe from the unknown. The problem is, your amygdala cannot tell the difference between a physical predator and a sudden drastic lifestyle change. When you force yourself to completely overhaul your life overnight, your brain perceives this massive shift as a severe threat to your survival. It panics. It instantly triggers your fight-or-flight response. That sudden wave of procrastination you feel, that crippling resistance that makes you stay in bed instead of taking action, that is not you being weak. That is your brain actively fighting to protect you from what it sees as dangerous territory. To truly transform our lives, we cannot declare war on our own biology. We need a far more subtle approach. We have to find a way to quietly bypass our mental security guards without setting off the alarm. To find the master key that bypasses those mental security guards, we have to look across the world to an island nation, Japan. This is a land relentlessly shaped by the raw and unpredictable forces of nature. It is a place intimately familiar with earthquakes and typhoons. A nation that has literally had to rebuild itself from the absolute ashes of destruction. When the ground beneath your feet is constantly shifting, when everything you know can vanish in a single heartbeat, relying on giant leaps of progress becomes impossible. Making rigid, sweeping plans for the future feels completely absurd. In the face of such overwhelming hardship, the people of Japan had to find a different way to endure. They learned to anchor themselves deeply into the present moment. They realized that when the outside world is completely chaotic, the only thing you can truly control is the single, tiny step directly in front of you. They survived by focusing their energy on optimizing the smallest details of their daily existence. Western hustle culture constantly screams at us to move faster, demanding immediate and aggressive results. But that relentless pressure is exactly what terrifies our biology. This brings us to a fascinating realization. Through centuries of overcoming adversity, Japanese culture unknowingly developed the ultimate antidote to our modern anxiety. In their quiet and persistent effort to thrive, they inadvertently designed a way of life that perfectly soothes the amygdala. They learned how to calm the alarm system of the brain. They did not conquer tragedy by fighting against massive changes. Instead, They survived by breaking change down into fragments so incredibly small that the human mind no longer perceived them as a threat. So, how do we actually apply this quiet survival tactic to our modern lives? It begins by completely rewiring our mindset. It begins with a concept called Kaizen. Kaizen is often translated as continuous improvement, but psychologically it is something much deeper. It is the ultimate loophole to trick your own brain. Instead of setting a terrifying goal like working out for an hour every day, Kaizen asks you to do just one push-up, or perhaps just put on your running shoes. That is it. By making the action ridiculously small, your amygdala stays completely asleep. The step is so tiny that your brain simply cannot generate fear or resistance. You are literally sneaking past your own procrastination, building momentum before your mind even realizes a change is happening. But we are human. There will inevitably be days when even that single tiny step feels like too much. When you stumble, the instinct is to punish yourself. This is where we desperately need the healing philosophy of Wabi-sabi. In modern psychology, we call this self-compassion. Wabi-sabi is the art of finding absolute beauty in imperfection. It frees you from the suffocating grip of toxic perfectionism. It reminds you that a missed day or a flawed attempt does not make you a failure. It simply makes you human. Your broken pieces do not need to be hidden. Yet all this quiet, beautiful progress can be instantly destroyed the moment you look at a screen. We easily fall into the trap of social comparison. To protect your fragile growth from the toxic noise of the internet, you must embrace Ubai-tori. This is the profound understanding that the cherry blossom does not compare itself to the plum blossom. Each flower blooms in its own specific time. Ubai-tori is your mental shield. It allows you to log off and remember that your quiet, slow progress is entirely valid, no matter how loudly others are shouting about their own success. Once your mind learns to stop resisting change, and you have shielded yourself from the noise of the world, you need something to anchor you to the present moment. You need a reason to step out from under the covers. The Japanese call this Ikigai. Often society pressures us to find a massive, world-changing life purpose. The sheer weight of that expectation is enough to trigger a severe existential crisis. But what if your Ikigai is microscopic? What if your intrinsic motivation is simply the quiet ritual of brewing a perfect cup of tea, while the rest of the house is still asleep? It does not have to be a grand mission to save the world. It only needs to be a tiny, private spark of joy, just enough to gently pull you into the new day. And as you finally step outside, the loud rush of the modern city hits you. This is exactly when you need the quiet practice of Shinrin-yoku, often translated as forest bathing. You do not need to book a week-long retreat in the deep wilderness to feel its effects. Think of it as a micro-intervention for your biology. It is taking exactly 60 seconds on your busy commute to stop and stand beneath a single tree. Just pause. Breathe in the air around the leaves. Look at the sunlight filtering through the branches. This is not just poetry. It is a profound biological reset. In those quiet 60 seconds, you are directly soothing your sympathetic nervous system. You are commanding your own body to drop its cortisol levels. You are deeply anchoring yourself to the living earth before the digital world has a chance to consume you. Now that you are anchored in the present moment, you must learn the quiet discipline of letting go. We live in a loud culture of excess. We are constantly pushed to consume more food, more content, and more information until we feel completely sick. The Japanese counter this overwhelming noise with hara hachibu. This is the practice of eating until you are only 80% full. But make no mistake, this is not a diet. It is a profound daily exercise in mindfulness and impulse control. It is training your brain to recognize the very subtle difference between being satisfied and being completely stuffed. By intentionally stopping before you reach your absolute limit, you actively take back control from your own impulses. You learn the incredible, quiet power of saying enough. This newfound sense of control easily spills over into the rest of your life. You can reinforce it with a microscopic version of Kakebo. This is the traditional art of financial mindfulness. You do not need complex spreadsheets or hours of planning. Just take one single minute every evening before bed. Take a physical pen and write down just one expense from your day on a piece of paper. That is it. This tiny, deliberate action brings sudden order to the chaos of modern consumption. Day by day, these microscopic acts of self-control gently accumulate. Without you even noticing, they build an unshakable iron core within your spirit. This brings us to Gaman, the quiet art of endurance. It is a deep mental resilience. Because you have actively trained your mind to handle tiny moments of discomfort, like stopping your meal early or facing your daily choices, you are no longer easily broken by the world. You have slowly built the quiet strength to walk through heavy storms without shattering. This brings us to one of the most fascinating paradoxes in human psychology. We are constantly sold the illusion of speed. We deeply believe that if we just push harder and run faster, we will somehow arrive at a better version of ourselves in record time. Yet, the harder we try to sprint through massive life changes, the faster we crash. We burn out, we give up, and we inevitably find ourselves right back at the starting line, feeling even more defeated than before. But there is a strange and beautiful secret hiding in the exact opposite approach. The more willingly you accept moving slowly, the further you will actually travel. By fully surrendering to the quiet power of tiny, almost invisible steps, you gently bypass the heavy anxiety of expectation. When you consistently practice these small habits every day, from finding your simple morning spark to leaving a little empty space after a meal, they do not create massive, explosive fireworks in your life. You will not experience a sudden, dramatic transformation overnight. And that is exactly the point. Instead of a loud explosion, these tiny actions silently weave together to create a profound psychological state of flow. They form a deep, uninterrupted current of inner peace. They build a mental fortress, brick by invisible brick. This quiet resilience becomes so deeply rooted inside your mind that when the heavy storms of the outside world eventually come, they simply cannot break your foundation. You become unshakable, not because you are fiercely fighting against the chaos, but simply because you have finally stopped rushing through it. So, this leaves us with a deeply personal question. Why do we continue to torture ourselves with such massive, crushing expectations when our minds are so desperately craving simplicity? Why do we demand immediate perfection when nature constantly shows us that true strength takes time? Think about a massive, roaring fire. It burns with fierce, aggressive intensity. It demands your immediate attention. It consumes everything in its path just to sustain its massive flames. But that kind of explosive energy is completely unsustainable. Very quickly, it runs out of fuel. It collapses into nothing but cold, fragile ash. This is exactly what happens when we blindly chase giant, overnight transformations. We burn bright for a very brief moment, and then we simply burn out. Now, picture a tiny, quiet stream of water hidden deep in a forest. It makes almost no noise. It does not try to violently smash through the heavy rocks in its way. Instead, it gently flows around them. It patiently finds the path of least resistance. It just keeps moving, inch by inch, day after day. And eventually, Without fail, that tiny, quiet stream carves deep valleys into solid mountains and safely reaches the vast, endless ocean. The choice of which force we want to embody is entirely ours. We can choose the exhausting fire, or we can embrace the quiet, unstoppable stream. Ultimately, your life is not a rigid exam that you have to perfectly pass by tomorrow morning. It is a vast, beautiful canvas, and a masterpiece is never created with one massive, chaotic splash of paint. It is carefully built through millions of tiny, almost invisible brush strokes. Please, do not try to adopt all 8 of these Japanese habits at once. Doing that would only wake up your amygdala and start the exhausting cycle of burnout all over again. Instead, I invite you to pick just one. Choose just one microscopic change to gently carry into your day tomorrow. Which quiet habit will you choose to plant in the garden of your mind today? Let us know in the comments below. Take a deep breath, keep moving slowly, and thank you for wandering through the depths of the silent psyche with us. We will see you in the next chapter.